You guys have been asking me to cover the My Little Pony's cookie virus created by Anxiety Monster on TikTok for a while now. And I have to admit, this story was actually really well done, but very sad. And for those of you that may not be aware, this Infection AU is based on the My Little Pony episode called 28 Pranks Later. And in that episode, we actually see Rainbow Dash is playing a bunch of pranks on the other ponies until they eventually decide to give her a taste of her own medicine. And we see this when Rainbow purchases a bunch of these prank cookies that are supposed to turn the muzzles of these ponies rainbow. With the help of Pinkie Pie, the whole town actually starts to act like zombies, giving the impressions that there was something in the cookies that made them change, only to reveal at the end that it was all a prank. But this AU actually shows us a reality where there actually was something in those cookies that turns the ponies into zombies. And since the name 28 Pranks Later is based on the horror movie 28 Days Later, we can assume that the ingredients gives off similar effects as the rage virus. But now that you know what this AU is based on, let's go ahead and see how the story actually unfolds. Now, the story starts off by showing us a journal entry that showcases the stages of the infection, with Twilight as the first example. And in this stage, while the ponies are very hungry, they still have some of their sanity. And at this point, the only thing that they crave are the cookies that infected them. We also learn that the rainbow muzzle is one of the first outward signs of the infection fault. And then Pinkie asked a question that has been on my mind the whole time, which was, what did you put in those cookies that made ponies become like this? And Rainbow responds by letting her know that she didn't make the people in Ponyville right now. They know for sure that Twilight and Fluttershy are already infected, but they don't know anything about Pinkie Pie at the moment. But she was one of the first ponies to actually eat the cookies, which doesn't bode well. Next, we see the stages for the frowning ponies, and it's pretty much the same, but Fluttershy makes it a bit interesting. When she reaches stage 2, she started eating small animals, and as you all know, Fluttershy is kind of like a Disney princess in a way. And what I mean by that is not only do the forest critters love her, but she can also talk to them. And that makes this extra depressing because she basically just devoured all her little critter friends. Burst out the door, heading towards the sound of the screaming pony, only to find Fluttershy, who is definitely not a normal pony anymore. And being so shocked at the trickery, Apple Bloom is stunned and just looking up at this monstrosity until we see Fluttershy take a huge bite out of her, basically cutting her in half. And I have to be honest, I was not expecting the kids to be turned or eaten in this AU. So this lets us know that this is going to get real dark real fast.
Good and tasty?
After that gruesome scene, we learn that everyone witnessed her death and were too stunned to actually do anything because they just did not expect that level of violence, or at least everyone except Sweetie Belle, who charged the creature and lit up her horn only to be devoured as well. This second death finally seemed to wake Pinkie Pie up, and she pulled out her flashlight to blind the creature and then shuffled everyone back into the protection of the cottage. And then she's immediately jumped on by Applejack. And while I understand that she's upset that she just lost her little sister, she's acting like she didn't just sit there and watch her sister get attacked as well. If she would have attacked that pony as quickly as she attacked Pinkie Pie just now, maybe the little girl would have lived. But luckily, the other ponies are able to calm her down and actually come up with a plan so no more ponies will be eaten. And we see Pinkie say that Ponyville is done for at this rate. The infected will start leaving the town and invading the rest of Equestria, meaning that they need to get to Canterlot and warn everyone ASAP. So they decide that the fastest and safest way to get to Canterlot is by taking a train. Let's just hope this doesn't turn into a train to Busan type situation. So after about 2 days, the ponies got their supplies together and started to head for the train station. And as the ponies were walking, they started to hear laughter out in the distance. But this laughter didn't sound normal, but rather broken and sinister. And then they noticed that the laughter started getting closer to them, as if something had heard them and was now moving towards them. And then we see a gray pony emerge out of the forest and started to chase them. And while it's hard to tell who this pony is, considering that they are gray, I think that this might be Derpy. And to make matters worse, after they spotted that one pony, a bunch more started to chase them as well. But luckily, they were able to make it to the train, and it seems to be in good shape, although there were some blood trails inside the cab, which is to be expected in an apocalypse. Next, we get to see just how strong these infected ponies are, with the fact that they were able to break through the thick glass of the train windows with little effort. And if given enough time, they definitely would have broken this train. But before they could actually do that, the train starts to move, and the ponies were able to safely get out of town. In the next chapter, we learn that it will take the ponies about 3 hours to make it to Canterlot, and in order to pass the time, Pinkie lets the group know how she got the scars on her face. And we learn that when the outbreak first happened, Pinkie Pie actually paired up with a pony named Lyra. She fed her and gave her a safe place to rest, but that night when they went to sleep, Lyra took an axe to Pinkie Pie's face, thinking that she was going to mutate just like the other ponies did. In thinking that she had taken Pinkie out, she ran off, and Pinkie hasn't seen her since. And it seems like the infection is the only reason that she was able to survive and heal, which is a horrible realization, because this means that the infected ponies are way more durable than we initially thought, and even if you take an axe to their face, they'll still be able to heal themselves. Now, after that conversation, Scootaloo pulls back Pinkie's hair and asks her how she got the giant teeth marks on her neck. And then we see Pinkie freak out, screaming that she's not talking about that scar, scaring Scootaloo and angering the other ponies. But then we have this cute moment where Pinkie apologizes, saying, "I'm sorry, Scootaloo, that one's a sad story." And Scoot responds by saying, "Can I make it a happy one?" We then see her come up with a story of Pinkie finding a little puppy who gets a little bit too excited while they're playing, and it bites her on the neck, but then apologizes and licks the wound to try to make it better. And I think this serves as a bit of a reminder just how young Scoot is, because we all know where that bite likely came from. But her story does make Pinkie happy, and it also takes some of the tension out of the room until they spot something on the train tracks. And this pony seems to have no intentions of moving. And once we get a closer look at it, we see that this is definitely Twilight Sparkle. And I was happy to see that even though some of the ponies wanted to stop, Pinkie said, heck no, it's best we run that thing over rather than stopping and being eaten. And I agree 100%. What's the point of having a train if you're not going to use it to run over zombies, especially this abomination? But as the train got closer, Twilight started charging energy into her horn, and once the train was right on her, she released it, knocking the whole train off the track, reminding us just how powerful Twilight is. After this, we see her peering into the hole that she made in the train, laughing all the while. But before she could get into the cart, a loud horn sounded from the distance, causing Twilight to howl in pain. And then we show the outline of what looks like a pony, but in actuality, it's a zebra, or aka Zakara. And she screams at the other ponies to follow her while Twilight was distracted. So everyone filed out of the train cab and started to follow her into the Everfree forest. But then they heard AJ scream. And when they turned around, they saw Twilight biting down on her foot. And while Zakara tried to blow the horn again, it was not loud enough to actually chase Twilight off. So they had to use the train horn instead, which was loud enough to force her to drop AJ, allowing all of the ponies to make it to the forest. Then we get this scene of Scoot hugging Zakara's leg and telling her how happy she is to see her. We also learn that Zakara is heading to Canterlot as well, so she agreed to travel together with the other ponies. But as we can see here, AJ is starting to lag behind, and it seems like it's due to the bite that she took from Twilight. And when taking a closer look, you can see the rainbow starting to spread from the bite mark. But surprisingly, when the other ponies ask AJ if she's okay, she lies and says she's fine, keeping her leg a secret from the group. In the next chapter, we learn that Zakara was linked up with Starlight when the outbreak first happened, but the two of them ended up splitting up because Starlight wanted to find a cure, while Zakara thought it might be best to lie low. But she did tell Starlight that if she could find one of those cookies that started the virus, she might be able to use it to make a cure. But once Starlight left, Zakara never heard from her again, and she was forced to later leave her hut because the infected were closing in on her location. And while she was on the run from the infected, she learned that if you cover yourself in mud, it will make it harder for the zombies to track you down because they won't be able to get your scent. Which causes this little cute scene with all the ponies jumping into the mud puddle, except for Rarity, who takes a bit more convincing, but nobody's surprised about that. After that, the group sets off for Canterlot on foot, the trip now taking 3 days instead of 3 hours because they don't have the train anymore. But before they can get very far, we see AJ collapse.
Don't you notice how I get quiet when there's no one?
But before they can get very far, we see AJ collapse. In the next chapter, we get this image of the ponies trying to keep AJ upright, and seeing how sick she is, Scoot is worried that they won't make it to Canterlot together. And AJ tries to console her by saying, "Don't worry, Sugar Cube, it's just a little head cold." But as we all know, AJ is a terrible liar, so none of the ponies are really buying that. The walk through the forest got much slower after that since AJ could barely move,